Obviously, 2004 was a special year. 2003, I know the way that ended for those of y'all that were on that team. Did that kind of set the tone going into '04? The disappointment of the way '03 ended, not getting into the playoffs?
Definitely so. I think we thought we had a pretty good team that had a good chance, and it was just kind of one of those fell the wrong way at the wrong time, and that's how it is sometimes. So I feel like it really kind of set the tone of the off season, and just kind of getting back into it, knowing that we needed to do a better job, the next year of just making sure that we played clean all the way through.
I would agree. That was tough sitting in there and seeing that we didn't make the playoffs, knowing the team we had and the potential we had to make a run. Felt like we could beat Trinity finally, and then so that definitely motivated us to, as Brett said, make sure we did a good job in the off season, and then as well, the guys that had been there were leaving. Cody was graduating. Tony were going, and it was kind of our turn to step up and set a new tone. So a lot of changes in there all in one.
I just want to reiterate what those guys said. I mean, I think we had a great offseason, good training camp. And I think we just came back, focused and more hungry than ever, because that was like our senior year playing together. So we played with each other for, I know, man, you, Jeff, at least 3 years?
Yep.
So, by the time '04 came, I mean, I think we was ready, chomping at the bit, just ready to show what we had. And, man, it was a great year.
The '04 season starts, things are going along great, and then the Harden-Simmons games happens. Now, I've heard stories about that and the meeting right afterwards. I don't think you guys even showered. I think you just went straight back to the field house. Tell me about that, what y'all remember about that game and what y'all remember about the meeting afterwards and how that really kind of launched you to make the run that you did going all the way to the Stag Bowl.
I think, the hardest thing about that was we knew that they weren't that much better than us. And I mean, I know we were able to prove that later on, but it was such a close ball game for a half. And then it was one of those things that just kind of spiraled out of control. They had the big reception that put them on the 2-yard line right before the end of the half to score, and then that just kind of set the catalyst for them. And it just kind of seemed like everything spun out of control. And I know, talking about the meeting afterwards, I know that if I remember right, it's been a while, but I think Coach Fred said one or two things. But after that, I think the coaching staff just left. And we sat there, as a team, and we had some guys get up and leaders step up and say some things, and we just, had to have a different mindset. And I think, I've been a coach for a long time and been in this game for a long time too. And sometimes you need a wake up call. And I think we thought we were pretty good, and I think we were a pretty good team. But if we wanted to be that great team, I think it took a loss to knock us down a peg and make us remember, kind of like what we talked about with the offseason the year before. It's got to be the whole game. It's got to be everything. It's got to be all the little things. And so I thought, leaving that meeting afterwards, I think everybody had just a nasty, sour taste in their mouth, and we didn't want to have it again.
Going into that game, we thought we were good. I mean, most of the guys on here, we were on the '02 team that beat Harden-Simmons. We were on the '03 team that beat Harden-Simmons. So they weren't a thing to us. And you remember we had shirts made. That's how we had the shirts made. Your place, our place, it doesn't matter. And so we came in, I guess, a little too prideful. And God, they shell shocked us. And Brett's right. That meeting, surreal. I mean, as he said, coach said a little bit, but there wasn't a whole lot that needed to be said. We knew that we let one go, and that we were seeing possibly '03 happen all again because we needed that. Now we had to put ourselves in an at-large bid situation, which we didn't want to be in because we know how that can turn out. So it was after that, it was time to gear up and really hammer people to show we were that dominant team that could get into the playoffs and do something.
We needed that loss, in order to catapult us to where we were able to get to, which was the Stag Bowl.
I'm still being kind of quiet because up until this point, I still hadn't been starting yet. I came in a little bit in relief in the end of the Harden-Simmons game, trying to sling the ball around a little bit and catch us back up. But it wasn't until the playoffs till I took over the starting role. But I do remember a little bit about that conversation after the loss to Harden-Simmons, and it was a pretty just kind of teammates to teammates kind of a thing, pretty heartfelt. And I think the thing I remember from Fred's conversation is, y'all can make the decision of what you want this to do with your season. And you seniors, y'all can figure, and I was a freshman at the time, but it was, what do you want? What do you want the legacy to be? Where do you want this to end up at? Where do you want this to go? And that was kind of the question that was quickly posed. And then we sat in the locker room for a pretty good while after that, just kind of having a heart to heart of, guys, what do you want to do? What are we going to make of ourselves? And and you mentioned the loss before, and the way the season ended before that ETBU game. I remember it. I was actually on a visit over there to the campus that weekend and watched that football game. And some of the guys on this phone call may not even know that. I don't know if I've ever really shared that or not, but I was actually at that game and watched it when I was a senior in high school. And some of the things I saw, I had offers to go several different places. And some of the things I saw from that team and some of the guys to get to know them was a big reason why I ended up going to UMHB.
You're kind of in the same situation. You roll through the rest of the regular season, and there you are right back watching the show for the selections and having to hope that you're going to get in. Do y'all remember that day, what that was like, and how it felt when you finally saw Mary Hardin-Baylor pop up there again?
Oh, yeah.
I remember, I mean, the big thing was going into it, because what was that? That was the 7th ball game of the year. Is that right? So, so we had 3 more ball games, and it was like, leave no doubt, we're gonna go out there and there will be no question that we ought to be, the Pool C bid team. And I just remember finally seeing it and just being ecstatic. And I'm sure, Big O and Walter can attest this too, being a senior year, just seeing everything, knowing right before that it could all crash down in front of you or you could have a chance, and just seeing that chance I think it lit a fire in everybody.
I mean, we had sat in that room, that was the 3rd year. We had sat and watched for whether we were going to get selected or not, because we did in 02 and we got selected in 03 and we didn't. So, just the nerves, the tension was palpable, hoping when that South region popped up that our name was going to read on there, that we didn't let it slip on a game that we knew to be a fluke.
It was one of those teams that we knew that if we got a chance to be in it, that we had a chance to win it. So just seeing our name there, it kind of made it all, it all came together, knowing that, hey, this is our opportunity to do something special, and we made a heck of a run.
But talking about that run, it starts at Trinity again. Andy gets hurt. Josh comes in, and I know he'd played some, but you kind of referenced it to yourself, Josh. This was your moment, and what was the reaction to everyone else? And did y'all see the growth of Josh when he knew what role he was going to be in, kind of going forward from there?
We knew Josh was a heck of a quarterback. Josh threw pretty balls, left-handed. He was doing his thing. But we knew that our offense was like, we pretty much run the football, So if we can run the football, play action, bootleg, we had opportunity, to win at all costs. But Josh, man, he was great. He stepped in, broad shoulders, and, took the team by the helm, and we went for it.
Just, being on the other side of the ball, but on the outside looking in, one thing that I'd known about Josh, just in kind of myself being a coach's kid, I had some faith too, just in that, just knowing that, you got somebody who's been around this thing his whole life, and now he's been thrown into it. It's a different mindset than somebody that hadn't been around it. So, I personally was a coach's kid myself. So just kind of knowing that, and kind of feeling that, it was a quiet confidence that he had, but it was it was a confidence. And then, like he said, having all the weapons and having all the talent and the offensive line we had, certainly helped the transition. But that's kind of what we felt from the other side. And we felt if we could just, do our job on defense, that our offense could still definitely get the job done.
You get the win at Trinity, you get the revenge win in Abilene, and then you go up to Washington and Jefferson, and from the opening gun, that one's basically over, just the way y'all took control of the game. And it finally sets the matchup. And I've heard players throughout the history of UMHB football talk about Pete Fredenberg when he was recruiting them, saying, we're going to go play Mount Union, we're going to go play in the snow. and you guys get a chance to go play Mountain Union and go play in the snow. What was the feeling knowing what the matchup was going to be there for the semifinals, and just what was that week like getting ready to go play a team that everyone had heard of if you knew anything about Division III football?
We didn't know how we matched up. We did our film. We did everything we could do to get ourselves prepared. And that week of Mountain Union, we got out to where we playing at? Was it Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ohio, because like that Friday before, it was probably like 68, 70 degrees. And that next morning, I had never been so cold in my life. And, this is when you're going to win or lose. When you got guys on the sideline fighting over the heater, it was one of those games, man. But, hey, it's a memorable game, and I enjoyed it.
I was probably pretty fortunate in that I was a freshman, so I probably didn't know exactly all the hoopla about Mount Union. As far as I was concerned, like, okay, they're ranked really high, just another team we got to go beat on the road at this point. Like, we've already got a hand, we've already knocked all these other ones off. I guess we can knock one other one off too. I probably didn't understand how big of a deal it probably was beating them on their home field after they hadn't been beat on their home field for however many years. And from my point of view, it's probably a good thing. For me, it was just like business as usual.
That game was definitely a tougher game because it was a little bit out of our element being a bunch of Texas boys. And like Walt said, it was cold. I remember fighting over the sideline jackets and the heater and all that kind of stuff. But, one of the things I remember is just I think both of the teams were pretty similar in the fact that you probably knew what we were going to do. It was just who was going to execute better, but the real testament, I think, that came down to our team, and kind of like we talked about before, like building from the offseason before and learning from the from the loss against Hardin Simmons the first time, was going back to little things. And you think about them blocking a punt and returning it for a touchdown to go up by 17 points going into the fourth quarter. That'll show you what you're made of real quick. And for us, just to it wasn't big play after big play. It was just chipping away at the offense, chipping down the field, and then getting some breaks on defense with some fumbles and sacks and things like that. And just kind of all of a sudden you're kind of eking your way back into it, and you're going, wow, like this could really happen. And then I think it just says a lot about the team that year.
That year, and looking back on many different football games that are UMHB after that, but that even though at that point being there in the playoffs, first time we'd ever college, university, anybody ever been to that point in the playoffs and been to that point in our program, there was nobody, I don't think, on the sideline ever felt panic. There was never a panic. There was never a huge level of concern. It was just, if we keep grinding like we've done these last several weeks, we keep grinding, I think it'll work itself out. And it just, there was never a big panic, which there's a lot to be said for that.
To the coaching staff at UMHB just for having us mentally ready for moments that weren't going to go our way and for adversity through off season, 6 a.m. workouts, practices. As Brett said, even 17 down, we never thought that we weren't in the game, we didn't have a chance to win. We just knew, hey, as soon as we got an opportunity, the next opportunity, we were going to make the most of that, and we were just going to take it one step at a time.
We're building up toward the catch. Trust me, we're going to get to it. But, you talk about the block punt and the touchdown, and there was kind of a feeling in the press box that, this is a point where Mountain Union kind of puts people away. They've been here before. Mary Hardin Baylor hasn't. And next thing you know, you've got a third string running back coming in the game, picking up big chunks of yardage, and you're fighting your way back in. What was the feeling like on the sidelines? What do you guys remember from that, and the ability to fight back, and the fact that y'all never did really feel like you had your backs against the wall?
I guess, I don't know. I never felt like we really had our backs against the wall that much. And, AC being coined, say, a third string running back, if you looked at the depth chart, I guess that's technically true, but he was a playmaker. And the reason he got put in the game was to come make a play. And I can remember we ran an option into the boundary of 3rd and 20. And I think I pitched the ball to him about 3 yards off the sideline, and he cut it back the entire way back across the field and ended up getting the first down. So, I mean, there was a rhyme and a purpose to that, and it was, getting some playmakers in the game. And, as powerful as we were up front, that game we were able to hit some play actions and hit some plays down the field. I think that stretched them a little bit. That helped us kind of come back in that third quarter. And you mentioned bringing up the catch. We hit PJ with a couple of them. Hit Austin Schrader made a couple great catches down the field. One where I got smashed and threw a duck, and he just went back and caught it. And then nobody talks about this catch. There was a corner route we ran on a play action on about third, and I think it was probably about 15. And on Walt ran a corner route. I threw it too high, and I think he jumped up and caught it with one hand. That was really probably the catch of the game to keep the drive going. So there was a lot of special moments, at least that I can remember, and plays that I can remember that kind of set that whole thing up.
I think too on the defensive side of the ball, it almost seemed like towards the end as we got further and further and kind of started chipping away at the lead. It seemed like they started to get a little bit rattled. It seemed like we kind of got them a little bit out of their element as far as they had more plays that were breaking down. And because those plays were breaking down, the quarterback was scrambling or something like that, and we got a sack or we got a fumble. I mean, because I think we had 2 or 3 fumbles, and I think Zunk had 3 or 4 sacks 3 sacks in the fourth quarter. And so I think that was a testament that we continued to play well on defense as the offense kind of continued to chip away and come back, and they started having some of the broken down plays. And that was kind of, every time we would come off the sideline after whether there's a fumble recovery or a big sack or something like that, you kind of had this thinking like, man, I think we're coming back on them, and I think they're breaking down on us. I think we're outplaying them on defense right now. And then of course, like I said, Zunk had just so many big plays in that fourth quarter that just set everything up for the offense to have a little bit of a short field and things like that.
We get to the catch, and I'll give you the first shot, Walter. Do you remember what the play call was, and just kind of walk us through that play and what it felt like to make that catch and what you remember about it?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think no one ran the route they were supposed to run. Honestly, I think everybody was just trying to get to the end zone and get in a position. Because I think, I think PJ ran a 9 route. I think I was supposed to come across maybe on a post or something like that, and Austin was down as well. And I think the ball, like when I watched the film afterwards, the ball was probably going to PJ, but I was between Josh and PJ, so hey, I just jumped and closed my eyes, and the rest is history. Honestly, that's all I remember.
I can't give you much more than Walter can. I don't think I remember. We were in a 3-by-1 set. With Schrader was the lone receiver on one side, and the safety, 2 safety look. The one safety on the lone receiver side stayed back over on that side, so came back to the 3 receiver side and thought I saw a gap between some defenders and just chunked it. And I'm glad Walt caught it.
Yeah. I'm like, that ball was not.
I remember.
I'm sorry we don't have a better technical answer for you.
Right.
Well, that's good. I just want to hear y'all's memories.
Right.
I remember Castro, pretty good. And then seeing the ball flying and walked in between 2 dudes. And I'm sorry, Walt, but you didn't look like you jumped very high.
I didn't.
And and these 2 guys are just watching. They're standing on each side of Walt, and that ball's coming down, and they don't move at all. Walt gets about 6 inches off the ground and catches that thing. And I'm like, what? I can't believe those guys didn't do anything.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, Lord. Oh, but that was a funny one.
I think it came from, I think we had some on the sideline. I think the defensive guys, we were in a circle and we had some candles lit and had like a seance and some prayers going. And I think that's why they didn't have 6 inches of wall. I mean, you're just sitting on the sideline. Okay, here we go. Let it fly,
I think my toes were cold. I couldn't jump that high. My toes were cold.
Well, when you don't hear a whole lot of this either, because after we scored, all they needed to tie it up was a field goal, I believe. Yeah. And they got the ball back with like a minute and like 40 seconds left.
Mm-hmm.
So I got back to the sideline thinking, we still have to stop them. like as excited as we are, like we still have to stop these
Yeah.
guys. And
But here's the crazy
Coop came up with a great pick, and
I was on the kickoff team, and they had a great kickoff return. And so we kick it off, and I'm a middle laner in the middle of the field, and we kind of get lucky and get, slip somebody through, and we tackle them. But I think Smurf was offsides, and so we had to back it up 5 yards, and we had to kick it to him again. And I'm going back like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to do this again. And so you're running down, and you kind of see they had kind of a middle return, and you kind of see it open. And I got a guy in front of me, and I kind of look over to the side, and I'm going to try to pick a side and get to him. And you see it open like the Red Sea, and the returner saw it, and he went to cut. And when he cut, he fell down. And if he wouldn't have fallen down, he might have returned it to midfield or better than that. And then it's like, okay, well, that's a short field goal now. I mean, so I just remember my heart pounding the next time we had to kick off to them again, going, oh man, here we go. Let's see if we can get it done. And then of course, we just had a great series at the end. Coop came up with a big play and got out of it. Came out with a win.
Yeah, so that was actually going to be my next question, because a lot of people don't realize that they did have a very good chance of tying it up there at the end. And Zunker had a couple of big plays. Coop had the big breakup. And what was the feeling? What was your reaction when the clock finally went to all zeros and you knew that you'd gotten a win and you're going to get a chance to go play for a national championship?
I felt like all the hard work we had put in finally paid off, all the heartache that we had, was it 02? No, that was 03. We had a heartache, right? Because we didn't make the playoffs. That's all them hard times that we went through, and like building this program. I just felt like it had all paid off, it was like satisfaction.
And being a senior and Josh said he was a little bit oblivious to what Mount Union was, but I remember, right in our locker room above the equipment window was a picture of Mount Union in a national championship, in previous years. And so just like staring at that picture every time you walk in to go get some equipment or go into your locker room of Mount Union in the national championship and just seeing that for 4 years. And then, having that thought, man, I want to get there. I want to be there. We can do this. And then beating them there and then knowing that we had beat Mount Union to go to the national championship, to me was, a little bit of shock, a little bit of just utter relief. I didn't feel cold anymore.